Hey everybody, welcome to Hear Us Out. I'm Patrick.
And I'm Paul. How's it going?
Pretty good, my friend. And we're back again this week. Not live, we just look live. And if you're watching in the future, you'll know no difference. This is a pre record, but if you have joined us live, I'm over there in the chat right now, so you can say hello. We've had some scheduling conflicts, so you can still, this is a premiere, so you can still chat away live. And I will be on for the duration of the video to chat to you. Paul, what we're doing this week's topic should come as no surprise to anybody who watched last week's video to the very end. Because we had a viewer suggestion from a long-time viewer, Brew, you know who you are, and everybody else knows who you are too, to do who do we think, and we're going to restrict this to people who are alive, or in one case, maybe or two cases, recently deceased. Who do you think is going to get a movie of their life, a biopic as they're called? So who's going to get a biographical movie made about them? I want to get this out of the way early, Paul. We're going to talk about some people who probably will. It doesn't mean that we think they're good people or bad people. None of this is an endorsement of a person. It's all an endorsement of the fact that people are entertained by stories of heroes, villains, and everything in between.
Yeah, it's also to give them. It's also to the biopic is essential, or biopic film is also to give you an indicate like a view of what that person's life was like, kind of thing. Be it to make them a little bit more of a sympathetic person, or to vilify them even further, depending on, I guess, the vision of the director or that kind of way. But yeah, it's we're the people we're choosing is more the fact is that it would be interesting to see a biopic of their life kind of thing.
Hmm.
Because if we're moving into examples like Vice with Dick Cheney, that was a interesting biopic of essentially the vice president during the which was Bush Jr. administration,
Yeah.
which was played by Christian Bale, and there's a couple of other biopics that we're also interested of characters that may have seemed really cool and pop culture-y and stuff like that, but may have come off as kind of assholey and
Yeah.
not great.
Well,
like
the people who get biopics or get movies made about them, you have to have something dramatic or interesting about your life. It can't just be that person was great, they did a load of things. It usually makes for a better script if they did a load of things at an interesting time. They did a load of things, and maybe some of them were good, some of them were bad, but they were impactful. You've got a lot of musical biopics, so it's the story of the life. Rock stars do it great because rock stars not only have they written their own soundtrack, cheers, that's always
yeah,
handy. They usually have a tumultuous relationship with either a manager, a spouse, or drugs. Quite often the law. So that sets itself up nicely for movie making. And again, it's not just rock stars, scientists. We've got Stephen Hawking. We've got the theory of everything. We've got the Imitation Game, which Benedict Cumberbatch. I nearly forgot who it was. There's the Enigma machine. It was one of those stories of breaking the Enigma code, and also the man behind it, the times in which he lived, and how he was viewed by society and the challenges he faced. So there's a story that was worth telling just about the Enigma machine. But when you take the creator being so interesting, I know it wasn't necessarily considered, it wouldn't be the first thing that people would come to say, oh, it's a biopic of Alan Turing's life. But they may say it was about the guy behind the cracking an Enigma code. Then they'd watch it and go, oh, Turing's life, wow, that's sad and cruel and amazing. And I'm not actually saying what's sad and cruel and amazing about it because I don't want to spoil it. If you haven't watched The Imitation Game, give it a little look. Scientists have very interesting lives too. And if they live in interesting and awkward times like wartime and times of intolerance, that script has an awful lot of different directions to cover.
yeah. Like as you said, scientists and musicians seem to have this kind of like rags to riches obsession kind of thing, which makes an interesting story. They come from like humble beginnings, some of them not so humble in the sense that they may come from a scientific like family background kind of thing, but it's them going and becoming either a great person in their fields kind of thing. So like it's already a kind of moving story.
Yeah.
um So
So,
it's interesting.
so if that's what makes a biopic, a bit of drama, being around at an interesting time, or having done something, sometimes it's actually because you've crossed over with other interesting people. There have been just singular events in people's lives that have ended up having a movie made about them. And quite often you'll find that they'll mix over with some other cultural phenomenon or another person. If you've never seen it, Tucker is the story about a guy called Tucker who built Tucker Preston. Is it Preston Tucker even? Sorry. Who built his own car. And it ended up being a story of, conspiracy theory. Did the big automakers hold him down? Was it the government? Was it, the CIA? Whatever. Jeff Bridges being Jeff Bridges in it. But there's one of those things that it was also the times he lived in, and lots of references to other things that are happening that kind of make those stories easier to tell. So, Paul, if that's what makes one, whoops, I have accidentally started with one on screen that I didn't mean to. I forgot to turn off something there. So we're starting by talking about Stan Lee, because that was on screen when I changed over and I didn't do a preview. I went straight for the the shot. So everybody, Stan Lee's on your screen because he is one of those people that I think will end up getting a biopic, a real Hollywood treatment life story. I'm assuming that Disney are going to make it. It'll be produced by Marvel, and it'll be the only film that he doesn't just have a cameo in. But it'll probably talk an awful lot or reference his cameos. I think of this one like the Mr. Rogers film. Paul, help me out. That was with Tom Hanks. Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, I think it might have been called. Which was a look at somebody's life. Now, it was through the lens of an interviewer talking to him. I think since Stan Lee, anybody who doesn't know him, what's already on screen there is, a whole load of... I've just realised, Paul, I haven't been able to share my screen with you. We didn't set that up. So sorry, I'll be doing some describing. Basically, he's behind Spider-Man and all of the big characters that you know. So, comic years, amazing. What people know him for now, or know Marvel for now, outside of the comic fans, is the juggernaut that is the Marvel Entertainment machine. So the MCU to the rest of us. He wrote, lived, fell out with, got back together with all sorts of friends and enemies across the comic spectrum over the years, and the entertainment industry across the years. He seems like an all-round interesting guy in every direction, and the thing I like about him most is there'll be a love story intertwined, because his ever-dying love for his wife, much like, the Johnny Cash, June Carter angle, having somebody with a very strong love interest where it's a very powerful and genuine thing can act as a real backbone to any story you want to tell about somebody's life.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, I think Stanley's a really good choice because, like as you said, he becomes one of the biggest names in comics ever, and he lives through the golden years and silver years of comic books. And he's been a part. He is either the inventor or part of the event, or part of the team, or there when other characters from the Marvel universe or from comics has been invented. So that's a really good, because he's such an impactful character or person on current pop culture. Yes, it'd be a huge big thing to do a biopic of his life. And as you said, he's also cameoed in plenty of other movies other than the Marvel universe. He's in a lot of Kevin Smith movies.
Yeah, it's true. Actually, so. He's a pop culture icon, I would say. And this is, speaking on behalf of people that could come from outside of comics, he's the name and the face that you associate with it all. For people inside, I think they'd admit that he's the face. Other people will pick Kirby or Ditko or somebody as the name that they associate with comics in general, but the face, they would probably still go, yeah, he is our most famous face. Like he's the glasses, the mustache, he's an icon. He's quite literally a visual pop culture icon now. I'm just going to throw it in really quickly, and I'm throwing up a quick picture of Kevin Feige, because he'll be the next one after that. If his career keeps going the way it's going, or even if it doesn't, and if he ends up doing a Phil Spector and shooting somebody, they're going to make a story of Kevin Feige's life because he took amazing chances and did amazing things, and has progressed quite amazingly. So MCU alone, I think there's probably a few people who are going to have biopics.
I definitely agree with that one.
So Paul, can I go to one of your choices now, if that's okay? Now that I've covered over my snafu of having Stan still on screen when I change views.
Sure. Yeah, I think we'll go with Spielberg. I'm gonna hint at Spielberg, kind of thing. The reason I chose Spielberg is because he's one of the most like Stan Lee. He's one of the most influential directors of our time, director producers of our time, of my time, and like I say, Patrick's time as well, kind of thing. Like he's created some fantastic sci-fi, like Close Encounters of the Third Kind, the Indiana Jones films and stuff like E.T., Goonies. Like he has been a part of most of like childhood or which goes or kind of teenage year movies that like we've been had the privilege of seeing and stuff like that. It'd be interesting to see. And then plenty of other films that more go over to more seriousness with which goes Saving Private Ryan and such. But he's got one of the most interesting film careers, as director and producer kind of thing, that it would be interesting to see his kind of coming up, from humble beginnings and stuff like that up to, which is the icon of a lot of movies and producers, because you get some interesting kind of views, which you get to see the creation of some, like you could split between some of the creations of some of the most famous films, also his developing relationship with George Lucas,
Yeah.
During the explosion of the which is Star Wars and everything. You can also then see plenty of like Harrison, his relationship with Harrison Ford, and which goes Tom Hanks and everything,
Oh,
because
yeah.
he
Wow.
like
He has a
he is
direct relationship with so many icons of the era too. That's amazing. It's a great pick.
like it's you get, not only would you get to see one of the greatest, seen as one of the greatest like director producers in the world, and also one of, like a great writer as well. Like you would see such a cross section of like the early 80s to late 90s like TV and film development. Like it's such a spanning kind of like era where everything, like a lot of stuff. He's My best way to describe it is he like, which is funny, he is like to put it in context for maybe some younger viewers, J.J. Abrams has currently touched a lot of TV and film, and it is very clear that JJ's like career trajectory has been very much like, synonymous with what Spielberg did as well. Like he's jumped between the two mediums of TV and film constantly and stuff like that. That it would be great. So like that's the kind of thing you see. He is touched so much,
The
like
story, like the
content.
tentacles of his story, his story would be so easy to make if it wasn't so hard to know what to cover or what
That's
direction to take. Because, like you say, you can touch on his debut film, making Jewel, or the challenges of making Jaws, or the relationship with anybody that you just mentioned. Like, who's George Lucas? He didn't do anything big, did he? Listen, wow. Even then the Kathleen Kennedy, J.J. Abrams, all of these other people that have been part of his life and part of his career have either been looking up to him or working with him and then going off and doing other things. I would hate to have to write one Steven Spielberg biopic. But if somebody said you can write 10, I'd be like, cool. I'll try and keep it to 10, but maybe there'll be 12 by the time I'm finished.
that's the thing, because like there's such a massive amount of like, content there for to focus on, that it would be an incredibly difficult job to, you would have to just choose maybe a couple of films or something like that, or a period
Yeah.
of time, and just be like, maybe that golden era of time when he started bringing out like pretty much like that 10-year time between like 19 I think it was 1984 to like 1994, where pretty much every single blockbuster movie that came out was his, kind of thing. So
And
like,
there's going to be drama behind the scenes that only somebody who is going to actually get the rights to make it will be able to delve into. and pull out. So I'm calling it as maybe the best choice we're going to see tonight. But Paul, I know it's going to have come up in the comments by now, so I'm going to get a few things out of the way. I've put Donald Trump on screen for the obvious reason that somebody is going to have mentioned Donald Trump is going to get a movie.
Mm-hmm.
I think we can live without becoming part of the political conversation on him, but you cannot deny, one way or another, love him or hate him. And it's because he's so loved and so hated and has had such an impact for good or for bad that he's definitely going to have the, president gets a film made about them thing. George W. Bush, George Jr., he got Josh Brolin. So Thanos played him in W. It'll be interesting to see who ends up playing Donald Trump when they eventually get round to it. I think there's one that they may have to wait until he passes away to do. I just feel that he's likely to create so much more stuff that may be movie worthy. Just drama. The man does have drama around him, one way or the other.
It's I get. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see because you'd be able to. You could see the ending of the story kind of thing. We're not wishing Donald Trump dead or anything like that.
It happens to everybody. Just to make that clear.
Yeah, we're more saying that it could be a sense that it's a full life biopic. It couldn't be just one subject matter with Donald Trump because he has his influenced a lot of different industries. It'll be kind of a crossfade of stuff. I do know there is a documentary,
multiple
on there's a few documentaries on him, but they focus on a subject matter that he was involved in. I think one of them was Donald Trump Tower, which was on Netflix. Yeah, kind of thing and stuff. But this would be looking into family life when he was younger and stuff like that, and his relationship with his father, growing up into, which the real estate person he was, and then into more of the Donald Trump industries kind of influences, and then his political career, and then whatever future stuff that he decides to go into, if it's more politics or some other kind of endeavor that he wishes to go to. He is an influencer character. He's not something that if people are just oh, we wouldn't want to see us. It's just you got to see Dick Cheney's one with Vice and stuff like that. These are figures that we should see biopics of.
I can probably call it there as love him or hate him. The man's got a ball of drama around him, and drama makes movies. For anybody who's asking in the comments, do we love him or hate him? I'm not going to answer it for me, and I'm not going to answer it for Paul. We'll leave that one as a mystery that you can probably easily work out. Now, on the other end of the political spectrum, though, Paul, Greta Thunberg. Oh, I've picked two pictures for Greta Thunberg. Greta Thunberg is one of those people that, again, I'm not calling it. This is not one of my picks, but I think a little honourable mention. There are people who are either going to go on to lead extraordinary lives and have their entire life told as a story, and then there are people that may have their life story told for one act, so it'll be that part of their life. Who knows what she'll go on to do, but she definitely came out of relative obscurity quite quickly. I know she sat out for a year or whatever it was, so for her it wasn't fast. But Greta Thunberg and people like her, so what she represents, there are going to be people who will have movies made about them that have been active in the last, let's say, 10 to 20 years politically, who are not originally politicians. I can see more and more of that happening. And personally, I'm interested in those stories. I think I could have pulled up about 4 or 5 other people off the top of my head here. I'm like, yeah, I think someday somebody will make a decent movie. Whether or not Hollywood will ever pick them up, I don't know. Hollywood might like the Greta Thunberg story, depending on where things go from here. If she falls from grace, they'll definitely go for it. If she goes from strength to strength, they'll definitely go for it. I think if she's just the Greta Thunberg we know today, it's going to be a documentary. I don't think it'll be the future Charlize Theron or whoever that will play her. Not that Charlize, you couldn't play her right now because you're an amazing actress, but yeah, it might be a little bit odd. So Paul, do you want to throw in one of your picks? No, none of your picks now are political, so that's handy. We can move away from all that.
I'm gonna go to one of my probably my big gun one, like the one that I think is going to be actually the most interesting. It's Christopher Lee.
Ooh,
Um,
Christopher
I think,
Lee.
yeah, I think he is going to be. If I had to choose between the ones that I have, I think that I'd probably pick Christopher Lee above everybody else's. The man has had a life. The
That
man
he
has had.
has.
He's had a certain fantastical life. Um, Not only did he play so many characters that we are that like are classics. He played the Mummy. He played or he played Carrier in the Mummy, which was back in the day. He played Dracula. Who played Saruman from Lord of the Rings, which is he's played so many synonymous
He was in
characters.
Star
Uh,
Wars. Don't forget, he
he
even
was
made it
yeah
into
he was
Star Wars.
yeah, he was Count Dooku. He was a good connect. He's a fantastic voice as well. So he's been part of many of the stop motion animations with Tim Burton has produced, and plenty of his actual films as well. Um, and then on top of that, he's also been in a heavy metal group, which is where
I
he
was
sung
waiting for you to
songs.
get to this. I was waiting for you to
Um,
get to the Christopher Lee metal.
Now this is the thing, because these are all relatively modern things. The man was also a part of the Finnish army back in 1939. He was then part of the British army during World War II. He like he bounced between intelligence and RA, the being a pilot in the RAF, and
Wow.
like the intelligence parts are more interesting because he was literally a spy, like, kind of thing. And there is a point in Lord of the Rings that like Saruman gets stabbed in the back, and he like Peter Jackson is telling them how to like act being stabbed in the back, and Christopher Lee essentially corrects him. And it's like that's not how someone that's not the sound of someone being stabbed in the back. It's like all their air is being pushed out of them and stuff like that.
Wow.
It's more of a like it's scary about the amount of stuff that this man has been through, kind of thing. Like he not like scary and interesting. Like he was a spy. He was then turned actor, like creature actor and horror actor. Like he's played some of the most some of the biggest villains as well that we know about. Um, and then going on to also having a heavy metal like band and loving heavy metal. So
That's,
it's kind of
that's the icing for me.
like
Because in all these things, you have to think, how would you market the movie to people who don't know who Christopher Lee is? It'd be very easy. Did you know that Dracula was a spy who was also into heavy metal? Come see this movie. The dude ticks all the boxes for me as far as, gosh, even as much as I know and as much as we've talked about and as much as you know, you still want to see it because it's
it,
just incredible.
like if it doesn't get made, all I can say is please to the audience, if you don't know about Christopher Lee's life, please, for the love of God, look up. Like Wikipedia alone will give you a massive amount of information about him, but you should definitely look further into it. He has done some crazy stuff, and like I think out of all the people that I've chosen, I think his one would be one of the most varied,
Mm.
going between military spy like intelligence service to monster acting to metal, so
Well, then I'm gonna kind of follow on behind you a little bit because I have to make a choice now. Actually, no, I'm gonna go for it. I'm always worried to bring anything to do with cars into this, and this one's not really about cars because it's about a person who doesn't have, he doesn't drive them, he doesn't build them. He talked about them. A guy called Murray Walker who very recently passed away, and like that's why I was saying it's people who are alive or very recently. He's going to get a movie not just because it was talking about cars. Um, he talked about motorcycles and cars for most of his life, people hear. Yeah, but he was also in the army and was a tank commander. He also had a full time job, which he kept going even while he was a commentator, up until, it became unrealistic to do so. And I'm trying to do this one quick for anybody who's not interested. But trust me, this guy's the voice of motorsport. And also, as an ad exec, came up with opal fruits. Oh, I gotta mess up my images there. Opal fruits made to make your mouth water. For people my age, that was an ad that was on TV all the time. For everybody else, why do opal fruits look familiar? Because they're now Starburst. The guy wrote the slogan for Starburst. He was part of the team, or ran the team, that wrote the Mars logo, or the Mars catchline. A Mars a day helps you work, rest, and play. That's from the guy who is internationally known as the voice behind, amazing Formula One and other motorsport moments. And that's just, again, I glossed over it, a dude that was in the war as a tank commander. I'm doing him quickly because if that doesn't say enough for where his life story can be told, I don't know what will. The transition from tank commander to his dad letting him, talk about a motorcycle race and him finding out that's how he could be a commentator, to then the advertising industry. And most importantly, much like one of my other comments, this is another guy who had a lifelong love affair with somebody that every time he talked about her, his eyes lit up. It's one of the definite things, true lines that would show up in any movie about him, is his relationship with his wife and how much they adored each other. And I hate to say it, but because he aged out, I know how his story ends. I think it would have a very touching and sweet ending. Which, I'm not going to bring us all down by talking about how people pass away, but suffice it to say, definitely a life less ordinary. He is, he's one of those people that I was like, I kind of mentioned him. He used to do with cars. No, he was a tank commander and also came up with internationally known advertising slogans. And that's not even the things he's supposed to be known for. So what a dude.
Well, that's the thing. Like even like since I got into the Formula One and stuff like that, so I've started to delve into the history books and stuff like that of motorsports, and his name constantly comes up. And yeah, one of the one of the races in which the first race in which he passed, there was like a minute silence, and like so many kind of like celebration of his life and
Yeah.
stuff like that. So his influence over the sports and stuff like that. So it would be an interesting if. I don't think anyone can really be bored about this, because like if we're going to talk politics, we like these are people who have interesting lives who've influenced a subject in the world, and so much. Like I don't think like
Yeah.
I am still getting into Formula One even further and stuff like that, and I've only recently saw Rush,
Hey.
and I didn't know about what just like the whole thing between John Hunt and
The Hunt and Lauda kind of rivalry.
yeah, kind of stuff, and like this like that alone is an interesting kind of story, and to have more of that is kind of like you should like
Well,
if you don't know about it, you should definitely look into further and stuff.
interestingly, if they did the story of James Hunt, just his entire life, Murray Walker would be in the entire last third of it, because guess who his commentating partner was for a huge part and up to towards the end of James Hunt's life? James Hunt and Murray Walker shared a lot of time in a little commentary booth together, because when he retired racing, that's who he went off and sat beside. And they couldn't be more funny because they were chalk and cheese. Murray Walker, the excitable guy, getting the passion of the sport across through the radio waves and the TV waves. James Hunt sitting down in a chair going, yes, he was a useless driver when I raced against him anyway. It was quite funny. They were very good friends, but quite an interesting dynamic. So Paul,
Yeah.
I'm going to get us out of the car stuff as quick as I can. Who's your next choice?
I'm gonna go into music now.
I
And
was
I'm
just
gonna
about
go
to say, and
first.
I'm hoping you pick the music one because Brew suggested this. And for those of you
Yes.
that don't know, Brew is our musical doyen. He knows music better than anybody else on the internet. So it would have been rude if something musical hadn't been suggested.
Yeah, like I'm not sure if there has been I don't think there has been a biopic of David Bowie, kind of thing. There might have been some documentaries and some ideas, or it's like some films, based on the band and stuff like that he was part of. But my thing with David Bowie is, and also I'm really sorry, Brew, if you're currently shouting, like that I'm completely wrong in any of this.
No, I think
Um,
I think you're probably going to be right on that. Nobody's made a full life story yet. Anyway, that's for sure.
because like and also I am brave to delve into a subject in which I have little knowledge, and the person who suggested this has an abundance of it. David Bowie has been one of the most influential musicians for my life anyway and stuff like that. And to go through his like repertoire of like songs and everything, and also his acting career as well. It's such an interesting kind of it's such an interesting flow of music and times in which he suggest like he releases stuff, which goes. So I think it's just an interesting. I think the best thing is in, and it's just going to be when Captain America comes out of ice, and he keeps getting suggestions to kind of get himself up to speed with stuff. David Bowie is on the list, and it's very important why David Bowie is on the list. A lot of his music is commentary of what's going on at those timepieces and stuff like that. You know, it's and also on top of that, it's what society is currently doing and everything like that. So like you could definitely write a biopic which cross references his music, like the music that was being played from the bands and everything like that, which goes and then what's going on in society and everything. So I think it would be a very interesting full kind of list of stuff that you could definitely put into a biopic.
I think Bowie's a great pick, dude. Because again, for everybody, we didn't actually talk about our picks beforehand. So I just got the list and added the images very recently, as in I didn't have time to even think about this. So, like, your picks keep getting better in some ways. Bowie's a great pick for all the reasons you gave, and the one I would add on, it's the same thing as he has the Stan Lee effect. He's a cultural icon and has been for different eras and different periods, which is what you're kind of driving at there. But he was also weirdly like a fashion icon. He had effects outside of his music massively, not just on a social commentary point of view, but even just on tastes and people's outlooks on what was acceptable and what wasn't. I think Bowie's going to be an awesome film. The only question left is it okay if I say Bowie rather than Bowie? Because I've always said David Bowie.
Yeah,
and some people try and correct me to Bowie, and I think they're wrong. Because let's face it, Paul, there's two of us, and we can't hear them right now, so we're right. See how that works?
I'm perfectly happy with that. Yeah, so David Bowie, is definitely I definitely think would be one of the top musical picks, kind of thing. Especially since we enjoyed the Queen.
Bohemian Rhapsody, yeah.
Like,
well, that's a good point. Actually, I hadn't even thought of that. We didn't mention that specifically. That's one of the more recent successful biopics of an entire band. Really, it wasn't just Freddie.
Yeah, like it focuses like on Freddie and stuff like that, but it shows the history timeline of the band Queen as well. So like seeing David Bowie and seeing that people are ready for that kind of stuff is I think would be really good.
Absolutely. Well, Paul, I'm gonna again take a little slow down into some of the unexpected. Let's say I'm gonna throw up a couple of people. First of all, I'm gonna throw up Robert Downey Jr. and Nicolas Cage. Why am I picking Robert Downey and Nicolas Cage? I'm not. But I'm throwing them up because think about it for a moment. There are plenty of people in Hollywood who have had either tumultuous pasts or just kind of are a little bit out there. Like, let's face it, I'm not picking on Nicolas Cage to say he's an interesting character. He's definitely an interesting character. His obsession with Elvis. You know what? It's Nicolas Cage. If you don't know, you'll find out. It's Nicolas Cage. Robert Downey Jr., on the other hand, we've talked before about his redemption arc and the Hollywood story and, his, the child star almost nature of his ascent. And it leads into his massive success with the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I didn't pick him. I set myself a goal to pick at least one actor or actress because I had loads of historical figures, political figures, all sorts of stuff. And you'll see in one of my next picks, this is an entertainment figure, but I wanted to pick somebody in front of the camera. I didn't pick either of those. I picked Charlie Sheen. I picked Charlie Sheen for the most obvious reasons in the world, but I don't think the whole movie would be about him losing the plot. I think Charlie Sheen's an interesting story from a famous family point of view. His dad, Charlie, his brother, Emilio Estevez, everybody else, they are related. Um, the Sheen dynasty that he was destined to be part of, the choices he made. Let's face it, he was a super famous person pre the meltdown or whatever you want to call the Tiger Blood era.
Yeah.
Winning over here, winning over there, but also the fact that he then did that so publicly, and it was intertwined with stories of going to people's houses and doing crazy things. There is enough drama surrounding Charlie Sheen that you could make a fairly impressive Hollywood movie, and people would go, "Oh, I knew that bit, but it's crazy to see it. I forgot that bit. It's crazy to see it, and I didn't know that bit, and it's crazy to see it." So he fills a lot of the criteria for, yeah, will Hollywood go, we can make a movie out of this? I absolutely think they will.
Yeah, like, and also his early year, like you saying, like some of the more other interesting things would be his comedy career and stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that, and some of the biggest like hot
Hot
shots and
shots.
stuff like that, and then yeah, in some of his more kind of serious roles as well and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So like, he's got a wide variety of kind of things, and it'll be an interesting kind of trajectory towards the events in which most people know him for, rather than his overall film kind of career. So
And there's
film and
nothing
TV
quite
career
like
kind of
a
things.
fall from grace to get a Hollywood screenwriter's pen going nice and fast. And the fact that it has
Oh
a pull up, or at least it seems to have pulled out of the complete swan dive, that's even better to try and end your movie on. So, and again,
yeah,
you get to cross over with so many other famous people and directly reference, one of the royal families of Hollywood.
yeah, like that's, and then as I said, yeah, redemption arcs are also very important and stuff like that. And yeah, like with Robbie Downey Jr. And Nicolas Cage, those characters would be interesting as well. But Charlie Sheen definitely kind of takes the cake as the interesting actor choice kind of thing. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
I like
then
that.
before your last one, can I throw in, because I'll go with my last one after that. There's one other honorable mention that I wanted to throw out that I know will have made the comments, even made the thumbnail. That will be Muskie Baby, Elon Musk. Again, fits into the love him or hate him category. Fits into the, is it all hype? Is it all real? Is he a genius? Yes, he is a genius. Is he Iron Man? No, he's not. Like, there seems to be only two speeds with people around Elon Musk. It's the I'm all into him or I'm all against him. Personally, I have my issues. I have a certain amount of respect in some ways for certain things. I think it is fascinating. If you made an Elon Musk story, you would obviously cover his whole PayPal, the early Tesla days, SpaceX, the Boring Company, tunnels, his unbelievable misuse of his thumbs when it comes to Twitter, as far as sticking his foot in his mouth, or as others see it, pure genius on Twitter. But the fact that he is a living person, is so young, and has such a cult following, I think that his life right now could fill a movie. But I think what's coming next, one way or another, will definitely make for an interesting ending to any biopic. And I don't even mean just his successes or failures, just the hype of personality around him, whether it grows or collapses. Like, he's the closest thing to a Steve Jobs story in some ways, but
Yeah.
he's also, yeah, he ticks, again, I keep saying ticks a lot of boxes. I will be amazed if there isn't already people constantly asking if they can get the rights to his life story.
Yeah, no, like, yeah, Elon Musk is one of those kind of interesting characters, and as you said, like a Steve Jobs kind of influencer, he is one of the most influential technology people right now, kind of driving towards more responsible and um, recyclable and reusable and kind of like that kind of technology and stuff, which is great and all. And then
And
some of
that's
his
if he's doing it
crazy,
right. Again, there's the
and
other
then some
side
of
of
his,
everything. So
yeah, and then some of his crazier ideas, which is like backing up the humankind on Mars, and kind of his views on AI and that kind of stuff. I read his book. I read his book, and it's a very interesting kind of look. It was released prior to the Twitter stuff, kind of thing. And reading that, it made him an already interesting character, kind of thing. But I also don't know if it's for show. That's another thing, because like in current cult, like I wonder if the biopic would also possibly, or his current trajectory could also reveal the fact that this was actually just a ploy in which he could build a cult following to support him, kind of thing. You never know.
Genius or sham, flim flam man or the real deal, who knows? Again, I could advertise the hell out of that movie, no problem. These taglines write themselves. So he's on the list, folks. He's probably going to get it. So Paul, I know your last pick, so I'm just pulling them up on screen. It's
Yeah.
tangentially related. Bill
Yeah.
Gates.
So it's Bill Gates, which was he is one of the big two that everybody knows of technology during the rise of like the home computing. So it'd be an interesting story to see him, kind of thing, as a contrast to the Steve Jobs kind of element. He was an engineer. He did develop some stuff, like some of the technology in which he used, whereas like a lot of people say that Steve Jobs was not an engineer. He was more of a the marketer kind of thing, the marketer strategist kind of person for Apple, kind of thing. Very intelligent. So I'm not saying that just because he's an engineer he's an idiot or anything like that. But yeah, Bill Gates was an engineer and stuff, and so starting up, and it'd be an interesting trajectory to see from where he got from to. Especially since we're going through a new surge of like information that we're getting from his life, kind of thing. Because at one point there was the whole rumor that he had more money than if he pulled out, if he sold all his assets and pulled all his money out of the banks and everything, he could bankrupt the world. And that was a whole rumor at one point. So it would be interesting to see, because he did start up a bunch of foundations. He has tried to do some things to help the world and everything. And then on top of that, he was like the person who created Microsoft, one of the biggest names in home computing. So home computing, home entertainment, consoles now and everything again. So it'd be an interesting to see a juggernaut
Yeah.
essentially of technology and their story, kind of thing.
Uh, People definitely love him and hate him in equal measure. And there are lots of people in between who would just be curious about the story. So I think you'd find a natural audience to hear this one.
Though that's the thing. Like I guess my honorable mentions would be Wozniak as well, the engineer behind a lot of the Apple stuff, and a couple of other of the engineers that are behind a lot of these companies that are known to the subculture of technology, more than probably the more kind of like, I guess, wide area. Like Bill Gates and Steve Jobs definitely built themselves into branding as well. That like some of the lesser known engineers definitely didn't get as viewed as they should have, kind of thing. Um, just before we go on to your last pick, I also do my honorable mentions actually are in a video in which we've done before. It is this these should be movies.
Oh yeah.
There are a few people in there from history that should have biopics made of them, and if you haven't watched that, you should go back and watch that.
It
I
will
think.
be linked right up there above Paul's left shoulder. We haven't got to do that for a while, Paul, because we haven't had a pre-record. So nice. Thank you for sliding
Yeah,
that in. There'll be a link to two separate videos, I think, because I think we did a series. We might have done two of those, if I remember correctly. Maybe
I
only one.
think so. Yeah.
Paul, I think Bill Gates was a good call, and as far as billionaires go, he was one of the first big, real famous ones. And again, they love him or hate him. Either he's philanthropist Bill Gates, he's cheating Bill Gates, depending on what news story you read right now, or he's tracking you all through his vaccine.
Yes.
There's no end of the interesting crazy that the world thinks about Bill Gates. So yeah,
Yeah.
not only is it a movie that I would see, I think it's a movie that lots of others would see. Um,
I think
Now,
so.
I technically I have to choose between two people. So how about I give one a quick honourable mention, and that's Lorne Michaels. And Lorne Michaels, for anybody who doesn't know, he's the guy behind Saturday Night Live, or as people would say, the good years of Saturday Night Live. So he started it, left it, it got bad, he came back. Eddie Murphy saved it in the middle, or kept it going, depending on who you are and what you think. Lorne Michaels, at a very, very quick run, why would that be worth a movie? He's going to have seen stuff, been part of stuff. He was part of making movies as part of production company away from Saturday Night Live, using talent from Saturday Night Live and supporting them. So without him, you don't get Will Ferrell on Saturday Night Live, but you also don't get the Will Ferrell movies. You don't get his breakout into movies. He's going to have some crazy stories. I'm just throwing up some of the cast that he has been around. Chris Farley, David Spade. You got a couple of the Ghostbusters there when it comes to like Dan Aykroyd and Bill Murray. Like the list is almost infinite. One of the biggest things I'd say that makes Lorne Michaels worth having a movie made about him, he has, and Saturday Night Live has, made more household names than maybe any other just entertainment property. Because he has such a long history now at Saturday Night Live that every generation has had two or three people pop out. Be it Kirsten Wiig, be it Dan Aykroyd, be it Will Ferrell, whoever it might be. And even if they don't make it, if they're not movie stars, and I didn't mean to say don't make it, but I mean even if the route they choose is not movies, Seth Meyers, late night TV shows are, what is it, 2/3 or half of all late night shows are headed up by ex Saturday Night Live alums. So yeah, he'd have stories, and it would be that kind of biopic, I think, somehow.
Yeah, like I get you. Yeah, like he would have contact with so many of the comedic kind of people in the industry, and also writers and stuff like that that did go on to plenty of stuff. Like Seth Meyers was a writer as well as one of the people on the desk, and also in certain skits as well, kind of thing. But um, like yeah, the people that he would have interacted with: Eddie Murphy, Dan Aykroyd, Bill Murray, Michael Myers.
Oh yeah, Mike
Was
Myers and
also
Dana
there.
Carvey, Wayne's
Yeah,
World.
like yeah, like there's plenty of comedic people that we would have seen come up and transfer into movies thanks to him and stuff. So like, it's it's such a it's such a wide variety of people that he would have influence over and stories to tell and stuff like that that you could definitely, and also probably the hate that he would get
Yeah,
from a lot of people as well, because Saturday Night Live was also one of those shows that didn't hide from any of the tough social things that they should have talked about. Which is, I think, a viewpoint that both me and you share. That comedians, that's what their job is, that they're meant to put a magnifying up against society and make it
mm-hmm.
in a
And
or
I'll
point it
be
in a
honest,
way.
there's probably a big undercurrent of hate toward him too from the casts, because let's face it, making live TV in a 7 day span, a live variety TV show like Saturday Night Live, the pressure is immense. So
Yeah.
there have been people who call working there hell. There are people who've absolutely hated it. I think there's a lot to know about what he's had to do. Maybe he didn't even have to do, but what he's done to keep things going. And also, people are always talking about how long The Simpsons has been around, and it's such an impressive thing to keep a TV show on the air that long. Saturday Night Live beats it by quite a margin as far as years go. So yeah, being able to have a TV show last that long with all the political, social, but mostly business and network pressures,
Hmm.
it's a heck of a thing. Heck of a thing. So Paul, my last choice, I've got to get it in real quick. I couldn't choose anybody but David Attenborough. David Attenborough, and I am going to keep it short because of time. If you don't know, much like Paul said earlier on, sit back with a glass of wine or your favorite beverage and read his Wikipedia. Because when the movie's made, it will start and you'll be like, oh, really? Or what, he pretty much ran the BBC at one point? He's not just the guy who talked about the underwater thing that or he's not the guy on Netflix that my kids love watching the nature show for or with. He has had such a huge effect on the planet in a literal sense. Can't say that about anybody else on the list, because the other people have affected the world. He's affected the planet in an environmental sense of his bringing not just animals but all of nature into sharp focus for billions at this stage over such a long career. It's there's no point in talking about him and kind of going on about it, except imagine that you even then get to have Richard Attenborough, Dickie, the guy you all know as the dude Hammond from Jurassic Park, being able to show up as like, there you go, there's another Attenborough, and he just happens to be the guy you all know from Jurassic Park or director of other great movies, which to us he is, but to the world at large, Dick Attenborough is like, he's the guy that brought the dinosaurs back.
And Miracle on 34th Street.
And a beautiful Santa that he is too. So not only is David Attenborough worth a life story being told about him, it is a must, and it will never be able to cover enough because the guy has so much, and I truly believe that will be one of those ones that when they make it, if they do it right, it'll be an absolute blockbuster when nobody was expecting it, because he's a lot more loved than anybody really realizes.
Like that's the thing. Yeah, he's one of those hidden figures that once you talk about, or the subject turns towards them, you're automatically just like, David Attenborough's like, he's an icon in narrating nature. But there's also the thing is, when he was younger, he would go on those shoots as well.
Exactly.
So like there'd be such an interesting, because every time he's on an interview on like a show like Graham Norton or anything like that, the amount of knowledge that guy has on nature is just phenomenal. And then to learn, I only recently learned, thanks to Patrick, that he was the head of the BBC for quite a large like period of time, and I was just like, what? Like the guy who did the nature shows?
Yeah, he ran so many different things in so many different places, and helped create technology to film things and show things. And there's a man that would have been a success at anything. Could have been a business billionaire. He's your Jeff Bezos who decided to go the other way, and focus all his attention into something else. And for my money, when his time comes, it will be one of the sad days that a lot more people will feel sad than realize right now. I think there's a very thin layer of people who are actual heroic icons, and I think he's easily, first or second on that list. So I really hope that he gets the full Hollywood treatment, as well as the countless documentaries that are already made about him and will be made about him in the future.
There's so much footage.
Yeah,
much footage already there.
And what a voice! What a voice! So Paul, I think that's us. I'm gonna talk to the people in the comments who are writing right now, either down below or following along live. I hope we've had fun with your suggestions. Anybody who ever wants to give a suggestion and they haven't already, if you're hearing my voice right now, get it in the comments down below. On your way, like, subscribe, share if you can. We'd love to have new people join us. This, yet again, is another great topic given to us by one of our wonderful viewers, one of our most long-time best supporters, Brew. So if you join us and you make a suggestion, is a bloody good chance that if it's good, it'll show up on the old internets here with us talking about it. So Paul, with that, heading into the wrap-up, I want to embarrass you by saying Paul's got other things going on in his life. He's also elsewhere on the internet. Sans me, nothing to do with me, so I cannot take any credit for the quality of this man and his friends doing D&D with Homebrew. Homebrew Quest is the right search term.
Yeah.
Paul, you can describe it as better than me, so I'll throw it over to you.
So Homebrew Quest is a D&D show where we drink and name things in the world, which is based on the beers that we're drinking, and also on top of that, it's also based on Irish mythology as well. So, which is it's an interesting difference in some of the more traditional D&D stuff, and also it's live every second Tuesday. So next Tuesday, which will be Let me just quickly check up the time. The
Third.
third, will be when it's on next, kind of thing, and it's a live show. So we also answer questions on D&D and everything like that. So if you're new to D&D and stuff and want to throw a question in there, there's plenty of us who are also experienced. So
And Hear Us Out, we like supporting our friends. And Paul, you're my Hear Us Out friend, so I like supporting you. Everybody, if you have the time and you have the inclination, get over there and say hi to those good folks. They're a real friend of the show. Now, I hope that we don't get something made about our lives someday based on this mediocre YouTube channel. Mediocre at best, let's say. But I certainly do hope that if anybody ever does decide to make a movie about either one of us, Paul, it's for good reasons and not because we're the Darwin Award type person who's like, we had to make a movie about them because they were the first to ever try that and it wasn't a good idea.
Well, in fairness, if a movie's being made of us, then more than likely the show has gotten bigger than, and noticed more, so that'll be good.
Well,
because like the Darwin Awards even has doesn't have too many unknowns.
This is true. This is true. So hey, folks, like, subscribe, share. I've been Patrick.
I've been Paul.
We've been Hear Us Out, and we will see you next week. Take care, everybody.
See you later.
Bye.